Good day, retro gaming fans, and welcome back to another episode of Rehab Gaming. So what we have here is a Nintendo Game Boy Pokemon Red cartridge, and what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be disassembling this cartridge and checking the voltage on the battery on the inside of the cartridge that is used to save our game data. And if the voltage is too low for that battery, we'll go ahead and replace it. So stay tuned, and we'll get right at it. So no matter if this is a new game to you that you picked up from somewhere like eBay or a retro gaming shop, or if it's your old original copy that you got from back in the day, it's always a great practice, especially nowadays that it's been so long since these games were produced, to go ahead and check the voltage on your battery just to make sure that you don't lose any of your data. And if the battery just so happens to be too low, what you can do is go ahead and change the battery. However, I want you to be aware that when you change the battery, you can lose your save game data. So don't be surprised if you go ahead and disassemble it, remove the battery from the back of the board, replace it with a new one, put the cartridge back into your Game Boy, start it back up, and realize that all of your game data is gone. Now, there are a couple of ways in order to try and save your game data and still be able to remove the old battery and replace it with a new one. Some of these methods include using a battery holder and soldering two leads to the end of the battery holder and then soldering the other ends of those leads to the main board of the cartridge to keep it energized while you're removing the battery. Now, this can be quite difficult to do, especially since you have such a small board that you're working with, and while you're desoldering the old battery, you could possibly knock loose those leads. So instead of going through all of that trouble, if we have to replace this battery, what we'll go ahead and do is just replace it without having to worry about charging the circuit and trying to save the game data that's currently on the cartridge. For starters, what we're going to do is we're going to flip the cartridge over to the backhand side is up, and we'll take a look here, and this is a Nintendo Game Bit screw, and we have our smaller Nintendo Game Bit screwdriver here, and we're going to go ahead and remove this screw from the back of the game cart. So in order to open this cartridge, what I like to do is flip it back over to where the face of the game cart is up, and once you do that, you can take the front panel of this game cartridge and slide it downwards, and you're going to have a little bit of a gap up at the top like that. And then after you slide it down, you can pull it off. So as you can see, there's a couple of tabs right here that go into these slots, and then it pushes up in order to seat in its proper orientation for the card to be screwed back together. We'll go ahead and set the front of our card down and take a look at our battery. So if you notice right there that printing on our battery is 99-05. And I believe that's actually going to be the date code for when this battery was either manufactured or when the game was assembled, which means that this has been assembled May of 1999, or that battery was produced on May 1999. And now we're setting at 20 years later, so I'm curious of what the voltage for this battery is going to turn out being. So we'll push the front of the game cartridge aside, scoot this over a little bit so we have enough room to put our multimeter up on top of our workspace. So I set my multimeter on the 20 volt setting so we can measure this battery, and at the very top there is a plus sign that has been etched onto the board that designates that this is the positive lead for your battery, and then down here is going to be the negative lead for your battery. So as soon as you put your multimeter on there, you can tell that this battery is sitting at about 3.00 to 3.01 volts, and it keeps bouncing back around. For a 20-year-old battery, that's really not that bad. However, these batteries can be upwards of 3.25 volts when they come directly from the factory. So over 20 years or so, this battery has dissipated about 0.25 volts over its lifetime. Now, where you start getting a little bit of errors and save game data corruption is once this battery starts falling below 2.90 to 2.80 volts. Now, I've noticed that that is the voltage threshold of these batteries to where the chips cannot efficiently save the data and keep it in the memory module itself, and it can become corrupted as soon as that voltage dissipates below that threshold. So we'll go ahead and remove our leads and turn this off and set it off to the side. Now we'll remove our game board from the back half of the cartridge and just kind of take a look at it. And while we have this apart, we can go ahead and clean up those pins. It looks like it's got a little bit of a grime on there. After all, this game is 20 or so years old, and in order to get the save batteries off of these boards, you just need a soldering iron and some wick. Wick up the solder there for the positive side, and wick up the solder here for the negative side, and that battery comes right up. Now, there are a couple of replacement options out there. There have been some people who have installed battery holders, so the battery holder itself is soldered to the board and you don't have to worry about desoldering the battery if you ever need to change it out. However, that's going to be another 20 years or so down the road. So yes, does it make things easier? Of course it does, but is it 100% necessary? Not always. It's perfectly fine if you want to put another one of these batteries here and solder it back onto the board, because you can probably get another 15 to 20 years out of that battery. So we'll go ahead and set this down and we'll see about replacing that battery there. Now, I do want to mention that when you're looking for a replacement battery, if you look up here on the main board at the very top, you'll see BATT CR2025. Now, that's the designation to let you know what type of battery is on this board, and that's going to be a CR2025 lithium battery. So when you're looking for your replacement battery, just make sure that you get the CR2025 battery as a replacement for the one that's currently in here. Now, to go over the different types of coin cell batteries, the most common used is the CR2025 and the CR2032. Now, the biggest difference between the 2025 and the 2032 is I actually have a 2032 coin cell battery here, and we'll put it up next to this other one. And I don't know if you can tell, but the 2032 is just slightly taller, which means this area of the battery is slightly thicker than the 2025. However, they are going to be the exact same voltage. So the 2032 and the 2025 are both 3-volt lithium batteries. Technically, can you fit a 2032 in a 2025 battery area? Yes. They have the same exact outside diameter and they fit on the exact same footprint. However, the 2032 is just a little taller. So I actually have a 2032 3-volt lithium-ion battery to replace the 2025, and I'm going to try and see if the slight height difference of this 2032 is actually going to cause any fitment issues after we get it soldered onto this board when we try and put the cartridge back together. So to prep the site, what I've done is I've actually applied a little bit of flux paste onto our contacts that we're going to be desoldering. This is going to help the solder flow a little better. I'll add some solder onto these contacts just to get some new solder introduced, and then we'll grab some desoldering braid and we'll soak up the solder into the soldering braid and get this battery removed from the board. After we get the battery off of the board, we'll go ahead and clean up the areas of the board where the two contacts reside, get that free of all of the old solder, and we'll introduce new solder onto this connection. So now we got the new solder introduced onto the connection, we're going to go ahead and grab some desoldering braid and suck that solder away. Now after we get most of the solder wicked away from our joint site, we'll go ahead and take a pair of tweezers while we're applying some heat with our soldering iron, and we'll gently lift up on one side of the coin cell so we can get this area lifted off the board and no longer connected, and we'll focus on the other side. And there you have it. We have the coin cell disconnected from the contacts on the board, and we're ready to put another coin cell battery in here. Now that we have our replacement battery positioned exactly where we want it, we're going to come in here with a little bit of solder, go ahead and warm up the contacts, and we're going to flow some solder in there to join the tabs of the battery to the circuit board. Now that we have our battery soldered into place, we'll go ahead and clean up the contact area with a Q-tip and some isopropyl alcohol just to make sure we get all of this flux out of here. And we'll go ahead and clean up the game contacts and we'll test it. Since the original coin cell battery for this game was a 2025 and I replaced it with a 2032, which has a slight height difference in the size of the battery, we'll just go ahead and see if we have any fitment issues. Hopefully this battery with the tabs, even though it is a slightly taller battery, has a low enough form factor and a tight enough pin placement that we can go ahead and get this board fitted back into the game case without any issues of the top cover not wanting to seat properly. And look at that, it actually fits just barely inside of that game cart. So as long as your tabs are a low profile tab, you can actually use a 2032 battery replacement for a 2025 original form factor on the board. We have the game all put back together. We put in the screw on the backhand side just to make sure that it keeps the board in place where it should be. Looking at the sides here, there doesn't seem to be any issues with this section of the game trying to separate because of the larger battery in there. And when you push down on it, it doesn't feel like there's any resistance near that battery area. So we'll go ahead and slip it into our Game Boy Pocket, hit the power switch, and see if she'll turn on. And of course, that's a good sign. We'll adjust the brightness here a little bit so we can see better. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and try and save a game, power it off, turn it back on, and see if it keeps the saved game data. So now that we have our game saved, we're going to go ahead and power off the system and power it back on, and we're going to see if that save game was actually saved to our onboard memory since we replaced that battery. And get through the intro screen. And look at that, it says continue. And it saved my player data. Perfect. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. We went ahead and replaced the battery in this old Pokemon Red Game Boy cartridge. Even though it was a 2025 coin cell battery, we went ahead and replaced it with a low-profile 2032 coin cell battery, soldered it into place. We went ahead and saved a game, came back, turned the system back on just to make sure that it did save the game properly, and we confirmed that this battery is holding all of the save game data in the onboard memory. So, for this project, that's all we have. Thank you for tuning in and joining us as we tore into this Pokemon Red Game Boy game, took the old 20-year-old plus battery out, replaced it with a new fresh battery, put it all back together, and tested it to make sure that it functioned like it should. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and hit the thumbs up down below. If you'd like to see more videos where we go into older game consoles, games, accessories, and all kinds of stuff, and get them back up and working again, do some preventative maintenance, or just getting them all cleaned up just to make sure that they're there to be able to enjoy for many more years to come, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Also, don't forget to hit that reminder notification bell tab on the right hand side of the subscribe button, and also select all notifications to make sure that you don't miss out on any of the exciting videos that we put out here on our channel. Also, make sure to check out our Facebook page at Rehab Gaming YT, where you'll find more information on what's going on our channel, some upcoming episodes, some channel ideas that we might be rolling around with, maybe some new series that you can look forward to coming on down the line, and also you can check out the groups that we're associated with, and get in contact with other gaming enthusiasts for your favorite platform and get some answers for those questions that have been nagging at you, or if you need a little bit of help to get your consoles back up and running again, or if you're looking for that one special game that's out there that you haven't been able to get your hands on, those groups are a great place to start in order to get in contact with somebody and try and fill out your collection. So without further ado, thanks for stopping by, and we hope you have a wonderful day.